It's 8:30 in the Tennessee Valley and time for us to have our special edition of Inside Oakwood with Dr. Leslie Pollard. He's here in the studio with our special guest. Good morning, Dr. Pollard.
Hey, good morning, Donna. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing well today. Doing really good.
It's a beautiful day. You're in blue and gold.
Yes, I am. You know, I got to represent. Got to represent.
Oakwood,
yes.
Oakwood.
Yeah. So listen, I hope you got a great word today because yesterday, I've been holding it together. But yesterday, I have to admit, I really had a meltdown yesterday.
I understand.
Thinking about my children and all that's going on. And we're going to be talking about some of the things that caused me to have my little meltdown yesterday. But listen, I hope you got a word today.
Yes, I do. And the background to this word from Romans 13 comes from when I was a student here at Oakwood University.
Okay.
Elder Eric Calvin Ward was the pastor of the Oakwood University Church.
Yes.
Pastor Ward, affectionately known as Pastor Ward, Elder Ward. Elder Ward was a pastor there for 22 years.
Something like that.
And so, but one day he used to do something. He did something really wonderful. He brought the police force to the Oakwood University Church.
Yeah.
And he had the police force talk to us.
Okay.
But before he talked to us, before he had the police chief then of Huntsville talk to us, Pastor Ward read a passage of scripture. And this is what and it was from Romans.
You remember this? Come on.
I do. I remember it like it was yesterday because it made such an impression on me.
Wow.
As a person who grew up in fear of the police, in my community, the police weren't friendly, like serving and protecting. We saw them as occupiers and enemies. And at any point, something bad could happen. And what I'm saying is not uncommon in African-American communities, that view of police. And yet, ironically, if something happened, we'd be the first ones to call the police, right? So there was that contradiction. Okay. But Pastor Ward read this passage, and it forever changed my thinking. It was from Romans 13, and this is what he said. He said, let every soul, Romans 13, verse 1, let every soul be subject unto the higher power. So he's talking about government authority here. For there is no power but of God, and the powers that are ordained, are ordained of God, meaning that God sets up governments to work for the good of his citizens. Right. Whoever therefore resists the power resists the ordinance of God, the thing that God set up. Okay, and they that resist shall receive unto themselves damnation. And then he read this passage, for rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Wilt thou then be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and you will have the praise of the same. And this was the passage that got me.
Okay.
For he is the minister of God to thee for good.
Ooh.
But if you do that which is evil, he bears not the sword in vain. For he is a minister of God to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. So this vision, he said, I want to introduce you to a minister tonight. And he brought up the police chief.
Wow.
Said he is a minister of God for good. Now, this is one of the most complex passages in all of Scripture.
Yes.
Because it says very clearly that the persons that we enlist in law enforcement are there too, as almost every police car I've ever seen says, to serve and protect. And yet that's what we've not been seeing in the past number of years, past decades. So as I thought about it, and as we're reflecting this morning, we've got a special guest this morning.
Yes.
We've got the chief of the Oakwood University Police Department, which was officially voted by the Board of Trustees in 2012.
Okay.
And it has been a blessing to our campus. And Chief Harris has set a wonderful example of how law enforcement can also be a minister for good in talking to young people and guiding them and steering them. And so he's going to be with us. And Chief, I want you to respond to a statement about the George Floyd incident. And this came from the police chief, Chief Deputy Austin Garrett. This came from him. I think he's police chief of Chattanooga, I think. David, I've forgotten David's name.
In Tennessee.
In Tennessee, though. Okay. But this is what he said. So this was a chief, and this is what he said. As leaders in our community, we must know where we stand. Oh, this is the one I wanted. David Roddy, police chief of Chattanooga. So this is what he said. He said, Donna, and I'm reading directly from his tweet.
Okay.
There is no need to see more video. There is no need to wait to see how it plays out. He wrote this 7-8 days ago. There's no need to put a knee on someone's neck for 9 minutes.
Right.
There is a need to do something. And this is what he said. If you wear a badge and you don't have an issue with this, turn it in.
Powerful.
If you have a badge and you don't have an issue with this, turn it in. Chief Harris, when you saw that, what were your thoughts? I mean, you do policing for us. How did this affect you as a police chief, as a black man, as a father of a black son, right? How did this affect you?
Well, actually, I have 3 sons.
You have 3 sons. Okay.
Sons.
Okay.
3 grown sons.
3 grown sons.
And when I say it affects me, it definitely affects me because, for one, I'm a black man. So just George Floyd, that was me.
Yeah.
That could have been
That's
my
you
son.
outside the uniform. That's you without the uniform.
Exactly. That could have been my son. That could have been anybody that I know in that same position. Mm-hmm. So just looking at that, I was like, this is not law enforcement. This is not what we stand for. So, and I was so proud of the police chief there because the next day, he didn't wait. He didn't wait for protest and outrage in the city. The next day, those 4 officers were terminated from the police force. That's what you do to let them know we don't stand for
this. This is unacceptable.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Now, I know, this is just such a hard time. And I've been trying to keep my spirits up. I just want to know how you're doing. I mean, like you said, I'm a mother of a son and a daughter. And so it just hit me so hard yesterday that, okay, these people could be my children. I could get that call one day and find out that that's my daughter or that's my son. But how do you feel personally, and what are you doing to get through these struggles as a father?
For one, as a father, you definitely never want to receive a call such as that. That's something that happened to your children. So my condolences definitely goes out to the Floyd family in that instance. But what I do now, I just, I have to stay upbeat. I have a whole police force that looks at the chief to say, okay, the chief is he's the temperature gauge for our department. So I need to let them know that we are still in control. God is in control.
Amen.
And when we seek God, He will guide us in the right direction. So I pray. I'm in prayer and just Lord, help us, help this country through this event, because this right here, this is going to change America as we know it forever.
I believe it.
This is the event. This tragedy, unfortunate tragedy, is going to change the face of law enforcement. We're going to see the change after this. I'm guaranteed. I'm dependent on the Lord that this is the time right now.
Right. So do you think that wow, I mean, there's so many ways I can go with this.
With this interview, it's just so many.
But what do you say to the people who are now just so against law enforcement? I don't care who they are. They just say, we hate them, What do you say to people, and how do we balance that out? Because we know that all police officers are not bad, okay? And they are not like this guy who put his niche.
The reality is the majority are not bad. It's the bad actors who have given policing such a bad reputation, especially in the last 15, 20 years.
Right.
And if you think about it, police officers make thousands contacts with citizens every day. And it's just those occasions when you have someone that's really not representing the badge like they should, and when you have the police brutality and the murder of our innocent black man to the hands of police officers, that's not a common thing. I mean, we see it, but that's not what happens every day in policing. We make contacts with all kinds of citizens, and those contacts should be positive. So how do we try to bridge that and say, how do we change things? I say it's one contact at a time.
Okay.
One contact at a time. Each time you make a contact with a citizen out there in your community, you need to, for yourself, make sure it's a positive contact. One thing I like about the Oakwood University Police Department, and I love about Oakwood University Police Department, is that we make a stand to police with Jesus first. And I love that. I say police with Jesus first. That means I'm giving you all of the love of Jesus I can give you, no matter what you did, whether you robbed burglarized a building, whether you ran a stop sign. I'm gonna give you the love of Jesus when I'm dealing with you in that contact, and it's fulfilling when you arrest people, because we have arrested a few people, unfortunately.
Right.
But when you arrest them and they come back later on and say, "Thank you, thank you for how you treated me when you arrested me," that's what policing is about. It's not about let me just treat me like you would want me to treat your son or daughter. Right. Treat me like you would want me to treat your grandmother if I'm pulling your grandmother over, or if I'm having a contact with your grandmother. How would you want an officer to treat you in that instant? That's how we should be treating people, each contact that we make with citizens.
Right. So
one of the reasons, Donna, that we organized the police department in 2012 was because of the very thing that Chief is talking about. We had some major incidents on campus previously, as you recall, some very disastrous interactions. And the question that at least came to me as I thought about the university was, who do I really want policing my son?
Right.
Now, I have two daughters, right? But who do I want? Do I want somebody who knows them, who knows our community, who looks like them? That becomes important.
Right.
And I've said to Oakwood University, students, don't just get angry, join the force. Don't get angry, get active. Join the force and change it from the inside out, as President Obama used to say, and boy, don't we miss him. President Obama used to say, be the change that you're looking for. No,
Right.
that's an unpaid political announcement.
Yeah, right.
But don't we miss that intelligence? That's what. Yes. So I'll say it. That don't we miss that intelligence? Yes. Don't we miss that?
Right.
So a part of what we've got to do, I said, what we've got to do here is we've got to get a force that is embedded within the community. And that's the essence of community policing, right? Not strangers coming in enforcing laws, but that people who are in relationship to protect and to serve. Because there are people who will do bad things to other people.
Right. Yes.
In the black community, in the white community. We know
Across
that.
the board, yes.
But again, one of the things that struck me when we were interviewing Chief Harris was this very notion that he just mentioned about policing with Jesus. Because we interviewed quite a few candidates.
Wow.
And I was so impressed. I said, okay, this is compatible with the mission of the institution. I said, so do you ever arrest anybody? Who did Jesus arrest? Right. He didn't arrest anybody. He got arrested. He didn't arrest anybody. But they do, of course.
Okay.
But do I really want someone who, without going through that, is going to introduce a young man into the criminal justice system, or a young woman? We don't. We want somebody who's going to try to talk them back off the cliff. And I've gotten multiple reports from parents that expressing appreciation for Chief Harris and the OUPD when a student could have been arrested and taken down to central lockup. They were talked off the cliff. Because the last thing any of us want is for a black young person to be introduced into the criminal justice system.
Wow.
You're right.
Chief?
The system. I mean, the system is the system. Once in the system, it's hard to get out the system.
Right.
So as a law enforcement officer, if I introduce you to that system and put you in there, then it's a possibility that you will remain in that system.
You may never get out of
So
that.
how can we stop that? And that's what we try to do. How can I help you? And it all comes with, first you have to try to communicate to your citizens, and then educate them about, this is what police officers do. This is, most of the time they don't know why we do what we do.
Right.
So that's what happens in the communities all across America. You have law enforcement officers that drive in their vehicles and never get out to know their community.
Right.
The community policing. Like, I need to know who my citizens are in the community before something happens, before the protest happens. And then they see me and I'm telling them, I need you to go home. And then they listen to me because I've already had a relationship with them. It's not just, I just show up and say, you need to go. Nobody's going to listen to that.
Right.
So you already have to have a relationship, and then you have to tell them, this is why we do what we do. We want to go home at the end of the night too.
Right, exactly.
If you look right now, I have a drape on my badge. We lost an officer on Tuesday night. He didn't go home to his family here in Alabama.
Oh, wow. I didn't hear
Yes,
about
Moody,
that.
Alabama. We had an officer get shot and killed, and he didn't go home to his family. So a lot of it, the citizens need to know, this is why we do what we do. Educate, communicate to your community.
Right. So, as we know, school may be starting in August, and they may be coming on campus.
Yes,
so,
we're waiting on them.
what are we going to do to prepare our students as they come on campus? Not only, there's been two levels. The police department has been dealing with security for COVID-19 already.
Mm-hmm.
Now for protest and students coming on campus possibly in August. What are we doing to prepare them and get prepared for what could happen once they arrive? Maybe protest on campus. I don't know. I'm just.
Well, of course, we're still dealing with COVID-19, so we definitely want to make sure we don't let go of that. So we make sure we tell people, make sure you use a face covering. And this is to the citizens that's out there now. It is not over.
Right.
Please know it's not over. Make sure you're covering, using face covering, protecting yourself and protecting others. Washing your hands. As far as the students, when they come back, we have a program called "What to Do When Stopped by the Police."
Okay.
Man, never thought we would have to end up with programs such as this.
So what is this, Chief? This is a what to do when you are stopped by the police.
So we bring in our students and we tell them this is what you need to do when stopped by the police. Not just the Oakwood University police, because we police with Jesus first. Everybody is not policing with Jesus first. So everybody's not going to give you that love of God. And so I even teach my sons, this is what you do when stopped by the police. And we have to have those kind of programs.
So you're going to have a campus-wide now, or how are you going to do that?
We try to have campus-wide things, but some things that you just have small groups and you just have those programs. Invite people in and you tell them this is what I need you to do. When stopped by the police, make sure you have your items ready so you're not reaching. Make sure you know where your license is. Make sure you know where your registration is. And if you can grab those beforehand when you hear that bloop bloop, you get your stuff together. And then also make sure your hands are visible. Right. Officers wants to see hands. Guns kill people, but guns in the hands kill people. So as an officer, I want to see your hands. I want to see your hands because your hands are dangerous to me. So I always tell them, make sure the officers see your hands. Don't get them moving, fidgeting around. And then also, if you can go ahead and put your phone on, call somebody. If you can start recording or go live, do that because now you have a record of what happened.
Yeah.
Then go ahead and use your yes sirs and yes ma'ams. It's okay. Yeah, this police officer is acting just real a fool.
Okay.
And you don't want to give him no respect.
Right.
But I'd rather you, and I tell people, I don't like using the word comply, but it's definitely what it is. I'd rather you live to fight another day. So if you have to comply and then complain later, do that. Because officers, what happens is when it's one and you're still not complying with whatever the officer asks you to do, then he calls another.
Right.
And then another.
Right.
You will not win that fight on the side of the road. You will not win it. So go ahead and do what you need to do. Get your tickets, whatever. Most of the time, the officer, when he's coming up to you, he's probably going to give you a warning. So remember, it depends on your attitude as well.
Right.
And then one thing I always tell them also, remember, you ride around with groups of folks. So you got your homeboys and you in your car with you. This is your vehicle. You're the driver. You need to control your vehicle. So you getting stopped by the police, you've already checked everybody in the car. I don't need you to say, why are we doing this? Why they stopping us? Because those are the ones who really agitate what's going on, your passengers in the car. So as the driver, you go ahead and you control that moment. Say, hey, we're getting pulled over. I need you guys to pretty much
see. I think, Don, it's this kind of practical advice that Chief gives. And unfortunately, we're in a world where we have to have what's called the talk with our sons and our daughters. And that's where the inequity comes in. So what Chief is actually sharing with us is what happens in that moment after you've had the talk with your student. And, don't get flipped. My mom and me used to talk about, boy, you got to flip mouth. Don't get flipped. Don't do any of that. Yeah, right. Because as Chief said, Chief's motto is comply and then complain. Comply and complain because you need to get home.
Right.
Your parents need to see you.
To get home.
We want you to get home. Now, in the case of Mr. Floyd, though.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, Dr.
Because
Pollard,
in this context, there was nothing Mr. Floyd could have done.
And that's part of the protest
and a part of the dilemma here that we have, and why I think, Chief, it has triggered such an overwhelming reaction, is because if
you do everything
in
right.
these circumstances he gets murdered, then the American experiment is a complete failure. There's no justice. There's no equity.
Right.
We have no protection.
Right.
And I think the difference here is that in Mr. Floyd's case, you simply cannot explain why that man was killed. There's just nobody can say he was reaching for his gun. I got panicked. I mean, you got an officer with his. I don't want to rehearse all of it.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
You got your hand in your pocket. Really?
Right.
So you're very relaxed in this position.
Right.
Or whatever you're doing, either pushing your knee. I don't know. But I think part of what we're saying here, and as our audience listens, for those of you who are going to be sending your students to Oakwood University, you should know that they will be cared for in a way by law enforcement that respects them and that honors the mission of our institution. That's what I see in Chief Harris and all of the officers who serve on the OUPD.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was getting at, Dr. Pollard, because, as a mom, I'm speaking as a mom now. I have had that talk with my kids, both of them, my daughter and my son.
We all have.
And now I feel like that's worthless.
Well, it's not 100%. I mean, if you take the force, the police force, unfortunately, we're going to have some bad apples on that force, some racist police officers on that force. But as law enforcement, we really can't afford to have bad apples in law enforcement because it leads to things such as a murder of an innocent black man.
Right.
So as officers, when you see this kind of thing in your department, if you see someone that's being extra, or you can tell that something's going on with them, that they got that racist spirit, then you need to say something. Don't just sit
and it's
around
okay
and
to
just,
do that now. I mean,
you know what? I'm gonna tell you,
because
I'm gonna stand by this blue badge, and I'm gonna let you know.
Let me know.
I'm gonna tell you it's okay if I see it. I will say something.
Okay.
I will tell my officers, if you see it, you say something. Now, is that looked upon under the blue line,
the blue wall of silence?
Right.
So I think it comes with anything. So an officer, I put myself in this yesterday, and I was thinking, if I see some guys that's racist in the department that I'm in and that did some terrible things, and I say something, I definitely put my life in jeopardy. So I just put that out there, because
that's okay. That's
when it's time for backup. Are they going to back me up?
Probably not. Probably not, right?
So, see, but that's what's kept the wall.
Exactly.
That's what kept the wall impenetrable, that fear.
Yeah, but
right,
we still cannot fear.
Right.
You still have to do what's right. I mean, if you stand and just be fearful of what may happen, then things will continue to take place.
And what
like
you
this.
said when we first started is that you feel like this particular event is going to bring about change in these areas, hopefully, where police officers feel more free.
But I think, Donna, I think that what has happened here is that right now, police departments in the country have to deconstruct the way they do policing. But Chief Harris already started that process when he came to Oakwood, when he talked about relational policing and all of those kinds of things. What has to happen now in the country is that the very construct, and I don't want to be too academic here, the construct, the way people in their minds build the concept of policing now has to be taken apart in wake of, and I think the death of Mr. Floyd is going to be the trigger point. We're going to look back in history and we're going to say, from that point, we were able to deconstruct and then to re-educate a whole generation of police officers. The police force is not a quasi-military operation. And it's regrettable, and we denounce the fact that even now the President of our United States is calling the military. Well, they're not trained for this. They are war fighters. Go to the Huntsville airport. That's what they call them, war fighters. But we're not at war with the American people. We're not at war with protesters. The last time we've seen this is when Dr. King was marching.
Right.
This is the last time we've seen this. So the very thing that we're talking about here, that many of us as leaders in our community are calling for, is we need to deconstruct and then reconstruct how policing looks in the 21st century. And thankfully, Chief Harris already started that process here at Oakwood University.
Right. Right.
If you talk about a beloved figure by our student body, it's Chief Harris. Yeah. And Chief, would you say a little bit about the other things you do besides policing, all the safety classes and all those things? It's a full-service police force, and the way he treats our students and the way the force prepares self-defense classes and all those kinds of things.
And I think basically what you're talking about, Dr. Pollard, is it's just building relationships. Mm-hmm. It's those relationships with the students, the citizens that you serve. You have to have those relationships. Mm-hmm. One thing I do, and I tell everybody, it's kind of crazy to most people, but I give out my phone number to everybody.
Wow.
My students, the parents, anybody in the community, I need you to have my number because I want you to know, if you don't know a police officer that you know and trust, that you can call, you can call me.
Wow.
You can call me at 2:00 in the morning when you went and had some drinks that you shouldn't have had, and you someplace where you shouldn't be, but you can't call mom and dad because they might be in Maryland or wherever, and you're probably embarrassed to call mom and dad. Who can you call? Wow. I need you to call Chief Harris because I'm going to get out my bed. I'm going to come find you. If I can't find you, I'm going to send some officers. My arms reach to the sheriff department, HPD. We have good relationships. So we will find you, and I won't find you and just say and try to condone and try to talk about what you did. Like, you shouldn't be out here doing this. No, I must give you some help, get you home. I want to make sure you're home safe. We can address everything else later.
Right.
We will.
Yeah, you shouldn't have been there. You should have been drinking that.
But I want to make sure you're safe.
I think that's very comforting as a parent. I don't have any children coming here. My kids are grown, but I know parents listening to that really appreciated that statement right there, that they know that their child can call you if they get in trouble, and they know that you're not going to be sending police officers with their guns.
And the parents can call me. The parents have called me from Tennessee, from Texas, saying, hey, I haven't heard from my child in about 3 days. Can you go check on them? Yes, I will. And then I find their child. We take a picture together, and we send it to mom and dad and say, your child is okay. They just was hiding from you.
Hey, Chief, what would you say in our last few moments? What would you say to so many, as a black person, to other black people? What would you say, and brown people, of course, black and brown people, what would you say to our community who just doesn't trust, at this point now, the George Floyd case becomes the final straw. They just do not trust police in any kind of way. What would you say as a police officer?
I understand. I understand the mistrust in policing. We see it every day. So I understand that. So I just ask that you just get to know some officers. Get to know some officers and take it. It's just going to be one day at a time. And then when you have officers such as myself that's going to take the stand that says, Black lives do matter. Black lives matter. No justice, no peace. No racist police. I will say that.
I like that.
I will say that. And then, but then we add on there, no racist politicians.
Right.
No racist teachers. No racist business owners. No racist citizens.
Preach now.
We need to stump out racism in America.
Amen.
If not, we're going to continue to have this kind of thing that we see every day.
Wow. So do you, something that really I think started some of the healing process was when some of the police officers in some of the cities started kneeling in front of the protesters. Yes. You feel that's something that we should, your police force should do as well? Or
if it's safe to do so in that area where you're at, because as officers, we have to think about safety first. If it's safe to do it, do it. I mean, the knee stands for I stand with you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take a knee with you to let you know we are one. We are on the same page. So, yes, I am always willing to take a knee to let my citizens know I stand with them.
Wow, Dr. Pollard.
Wow. Wow. I told you.
Oh, my God. My tears are welling up in my eyes already.
I told you. Chief is doing a wonderful job for us. Wow. And for those parents who are listening and others inside Oakwood, this is the way policing looks on the Oakwood University campus. It is compatible with our mission. And we're very grateful. It's very moving, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I'm telling you, I'm holding it back now.
Send your students to Oakwood.
Yeah.
Send your students to Oakwood.
Yes. That's right. Keep Chief Harris's number too.
Yeah, and if you got black young people, especially black young men and brown young men, and you want them to see the positive side of law enforcement, and someone who's going to encourage them to even consider careers in law enforcement.
Yes, right.
Remember, per Elder Ward, oh boy, I'll never forget that.
Come on.
These are God's ministers. When they do it right, They are God's ministers.
And we're going to leave it right there. Thank you, Dr. Pollard, for being with us, and Chief Harris for being with us with this very important discussion for the special edition of Inside Oakwood University. We'll see you on Monday with another special edition.
WJOU Huntsville, 90.1 FM.